name is Ger Gallagher. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer of Radius Telematics. I started in the industry about 15 years ago, worked for an Irish company called Fleetmatics. I then moved through the ranks there. We were acquired by Verizon in 2016. And now I'm working, as I said, for Radius Telematics.
Wow. And Ger, I've known you quite a while now. I can't remember how many years. And I know that coaching has had a really big impact on you and what you do and your career and your decision making and your leadership. So you've really taken it and applied it to many different parts of your work life. I'm curious if you would share how you got to bringing coaching into your work life. What were the kind of key elements, the catalyst to bring coaching in?
Yeah, so I mean, to answer your first question, it's about 2 years, maybe hitting 3 years, Maureen, that we've been working together. So I'll remember it very, very, very vaguely, to be honest. We were going through our end of year reviews a few years ago, and I was meeting with my manager probably once a month at that stage, just to review the year and how things were going. And I had a very positive sales performance that year, but the feedback wasn't very positive about some of my gaps, and I felt that there was work that I needed to work on myself. And based on the feedback, I took it upon myself to reach out to my network and say, okay, how do I move to the next level? So for me, it was a challenging step in my career to say I have gaps and I need to improve myself, because as a young leader, in the industry for many years, you think you've got all the answers, and understanding that you don't have all the answers is probably one of the more daunting facts. So that's when I reached out to yourself, and we really went back to the very start about leadership and understanding how to improve, and taking on critique and taking on examples of where my gaps are. That was very important to me.
And I'm so glad you're talking about that, because it is one of the biggest obstacles in terms of people, their development, their professional development, their leadership development, accepting feedback. And I'm saying it because I just finished a big piece of work and research on ego and how it gets in the way, especially feedback and critique. But I remember you being really open to it and really allowing the challenge of coaching to look at the reality of that. What allowed you accept that view that, okay, I'm going to sit here and take it, that testing of your thinking that coaching always brings?
Well, I suppose for me, I grew up within the industry, and I joined the company as a very junior person. So I wouldn't have had any sales training. I wouldn't have any leadership coaching. I wouldn't have any professional coaching. So for me, I had to learn everything myself by making mistakes, hiring the wrong people or training people the way I thought that they should be trained, or giving advice in what I would think they should hear. And maybe sometimes I got it wrong. So for me, it was a constant education for myself. But then when I got to the next level in my previous role, and I got myself to an associate director role, and then to hear that my development would probably stop there if I didn't undergo further development, was probably the most important wake-up call for me, where I said, okay, maybe I don't have all the answers, and I'm now dealing with C-suite executives, and I'm presenting myself to CEOs of business, or working for a company as big as my last. You're at a next level, which I just wasn't stepping up to the plate, I felt. So that was when I kind of had to take on board feedback that was difficult to hear sometimes, or I didn't have all the right answers. And again, from a selfish point of view, I wanted career progression. I felt that I was in the industry for long enough. I've got a family. I've got, two small children. Earning the money that I'm on is very important, but how do I get to the next level? And competition is fierce. So if I wasn't willing to maybe accept some home truths about myself, I'm not going to be able to move to the next level. So that they all played part. And it was a tough decision to admit I needed to do coaching. But in reality, when I started it, it was very important for me that I did it, and I understood why I'm doing it. Because even in our first session, you clearly articulated some of my gaps that I'd known about for a long time, but I just wouldn't admit it. So it was very beneficial to make that decision straight away.
What is that like? That kind of space where, first of all, thank you for trusting me to do that. And it is a very brave move to invite this
Yeah.
style of coaching in, because we had a discovery call and we chatted about, look, there'll be challenge in here, but we'll be testing thinking, and are you open and are you willing? And you were saying, I remember your 100% commitment and 100% willing to listen and engage and bring whatever you needed to. But then we quickly got into it, like you say, and holding up the mirror in a session like that quite quickly. How do you think trust enabled that happen? What happened in the session that forged that trust to allow you look in the mirror so quickly?
Well, I think you know, from my early sessions, firstly, I was referred to you by a colleague, that's somebody I worked with for a good few years. So I felt comfortable that I had selected the right person. I think you laid out exactly what we were going to do, that you were going to be, you know, you're going to be honest. It was going to be we're not here to make friends. You know, we're here to improve ourselves and to be to progress myself in business. So from that side, I felt comfortable with the angle that we started off on. And as I said, I think you clearly and quickly identified gaps in my personality, or my business personality, that I knew I was struggling with. So that then led me to believe that, okay, this is going to work, but I'm going to have to put the work in. And from being open and honest about my weaknesses or my gaps, as I said, that was really important, because if I tried to just pass the Maureen test, it wouldn't work. You know what I mean? If I just told you everything that you wanted to hear just to survive a session, and I can go back to the company and say, well, I'm doing my coaching session, that's not going to work and it's not going to improve me. So I think after session 2, I think there was a real understanding that this is working really well, and not just in my professional life, in my personal life as well, how I interact with people, how I interact with family. You know, it's not just about business that I benefited from this.
I appreciate that. And that was the impact that really you showed up with, that ripple effect. It was to you, it was
Yeah.
to your family, it was to your team. And just to speak to that piece again, because you're speaking about pieces that are hugely important, that if you don't get coaching, for a lot of people's careers stagnate, or they just keep moving sideways. And that is that ability to communicate up, be more visible at the next level, really feel like you're in the room or at the table
Yeah.
with the next level equally and fairly. What can you put your finger on or your mind to that helped you do that? Because you obviously did that. You bridged that gap, you made that work.
There's 3 words: calm, clear, and clean. Where and I would use
remember
them. Yeah, I would use that even today. I was speaking to somebody on my team about a meeting that's happening, and then it was something that, you know, when going in, I suppose one of the challenges I felt was that I would feel a certain level of frustration in communicating with people in my previous company, whether it was at a senior level, an execution challenge that we were facing, and I would get frustrated. So dealing with that frustration and teaching me how to deal with that frustration, and that really helped me make better decisions, communicate effectively, make you know, decisions that were not based on emotion but based on fact, was very, very important. And ultimately that ended up helping support what I was trying to do in my own career, communication with my own team, and then the leadership team within the business really improved. I did get a promotion within my last company as well. I went from an associate director to a director. Off the back of this, I was able to demonstrate the benefit of coaching while I was going for my end of year review, that, you know, 12 months on, because this all started on my 2022 review. That performance was good. I mean, that's a performance is performance. You know, I can't I'm not taking away from the actual sales performance were good, but there were certain parts of my personality that were clashing with people. So that's when I started to do my review. But 12 months on, I ended up getting a leading rating in the business when I got, you know, that's probably the top rating I could get. So being able to demonstrate the coaching review that you sent me on, or the Q&A that you sent me on, that was brilliant to demonstrate to the business as well.
That was the emotional intelligence assessment we used,
yeah,
which was great to demonstrate as a reality check of this. These are the actual leadership behaviors that you are strong in, so you could lean
Yeah.
into those. And the three words you used, I don't know if you remember, but they were personalized in a strategy that served you and your needs. So it was the calm piece was regulating your nervous system. And then
Yeah.
it was real about clean approach and language and being direct, and all that was just made for you. That's your personal
Yeah.
coaching strategy. But you can hear how you can have these indexes to your whole system that just allows you show up ready to engage in the environment you're in the meeting you're in, for the decision you need to make, negotiating or presenting, and then go for it. So one thing that stood out to me about you is how quickly you applied the coaching. That's how, I mean, we were working to a timeline, but not a deadline, a timeline in terms of let's see this working fairly fast. And you just would go away and do it and come back and say, this worked, now this is showing up. And we would just keep elevating it, right? But there was a piece in there around team I'd love you to be able to speak to, because you were doing your coaching. I was never in front of your team, but you were sharing how this was things that were showing up through you into your team meetings and various other activities you were doing with your team development and stuff. So can you speak to how the coaching rippled and cascaded through you to your team, and how that worked for them?
Yeah. So, back to my personality, I would be quite I'd be quite an active person. And if I get involved in something new, I like to share that very quickly, or I like to use anything that I've learned on a daily basis, whether it's reading books or listening to podcasts, or doing the coaching session. So I would always try and execute straight away, which is just my type of personality in general. Um, this has worked on both sides. Firstly, managing up in the business really benefited me personally for my development, but also, as you mentioned, with my own team, that there's a lot of change that happens in big corporate businesses. Some we like, some we don't like. There's frustration that goes down the ranks. So being able to apply some of this logic into some of our conversations really benefited us. So how we communicate with each other was obviously very important. I really enjoyed the six hats training, or the six hats methodology. That for us kind of worked as a framework for how we make major decisions within the organization. So, once we did that, the team were making their own decisions, and it was based on fact, not on feelings. So that was important. We would be able to use it as conflict resolution very quickly. If we needed to go in and have tough conversations with people, the conversations were always calm. They're always based on fact, as opposed to assumptions of what's happening. If we were having data readouts, it wouldn't get confrontational because of, again, trying to protect a certain KPI as opposed to identify weaknesses or opportunities to improve. So it really worked across the board. But again, for me, the main benefit I found from all of this was moving to that next level and communicating with the senior leadership team in a more effective and more professional way was definitely the biggest takeaway for me.
And you got the recognition, which I was so happy for you about. You got the promotion, but you also got a sense of yourself from a different perspective after that year. You're like, okay, I see where I am now. And something then started to shift in terms of what's next, what can I do with this next? So is there a way you can speak to how the new version of you, in terms of knowing you and who you were and how you want to be in the world, has helped make your decision to get to where you are now?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I suppose I knew, you have to be confident in life, and in general, you have to be confident in your own ability. But I was very aware that there were certain things that were holding me back. And in some parts it was confidence. So I'd be very confident in speaking with my team, or speaking with my wider audience. But when I would try and communicate to get my point across with the senior leadership level, I actually struggled, and I would get, for the first time in many years, I would actually get a little bit nervous and unsure of myself. I have the information, I have the data, I'm very data orientated, and I work with amazing business intelligence people, but getting that information across where people would listen to you, I struggled. So the ongoing work with coaching and speaking to yourself about this and preparing for meetings, and I would use, our sessions really as, getting me in the headspace where I feel comfortable in delivering a message really benefited, me moving forward. And then you flash forward maybe another year on top of that. And I was applying, or I was approached for this role and what I'm doing now, which is a step up. It's a chief revenue officer job. It's in charge of a lot more than what I was doing at Verizon, but I am on 3-4 sessions a week with the founder of the business. We're doing budget reviews. We're meeting with the board, and I have to present 3 or 4 times a week. So there is no doubt about it. If I didn't have that confidence from my last role in doing this coaching, there's no way I'll be able to compete at this level, at this stage. It really has helped me move into the next level.
And you're doing so well at it. So we're gonna keep going with that. So just a couple of things to finish off. If you were giving someone advice, a leader, a young leader, maybe manager going into leadership space, or at any point, right? Because we get clients at all different points, as you know, and they were thinking about coaching. What would your advice be in how to choose a coach?
Okay. Well, firstly, my advice to anyone, whether they want to do coaching or they don't want to do coaching, or they haven't thought about coaching, should I say, is you've got to be honest with yourself about what your gaps are. Everybody knows what their gaps are in life, right? Whether it's professionally or as personally, everybody knows that there's certain things that they're just not great at. But I think owning that, understanding it, and identifying, how that can actually cause you limitations in your future if you don't accept it. So firstly, you need to have the acceptance. There's no point going into a coaching session if you think you've got all the answers and you're just there because you're trying to see what this will do for you as opposed to what you're trying to do for yourself, right? Because you've got to execute and you've got to take on board and you have to make the change, right? Going to a coach is not going to solve all your challenges unless you're willing to work. So that's the first thing. The second thing, when choosing a coach, don't choose somebody that you think you'll get on with, or don't choose somebody that you think, will just give you an easy feedback, and then you really enjoy all the sessions, because again, you need to be tested, you need to be challenged. Coaching is not easy, and if you think about an athlete, they're tough, right? Coaches are tough. They want to get the best out of you. They want to move you to the next level. They need to improve you by that 1% or 10% or whatever that is. So when you're picking your coach, make sure that you've identified the gaps that you have seen yourself, and then when you're picking your coach, making sure that they're actually able to challenge you in the right way is very important.
How do you do that? And the reason why I say is that so I'm in coaching a very long time, and there are lots of accreditations that are very commonplace, and there's more elite accreditations. There's coaches that are starting out right now that I know that are in their mid-20s and they're amazing. There's coaches that have been around for 30 years and I wouldn't even rate them, only because of exactly what you're saying. There's a kind of a style, an approach, and it's been there. We've seen it. It's, like I said, it's very commonplace. So the question is, how do you, knowing the type of engagement you wanted and the move, the pace and the capacity, and it's great I heard you say that. Thank you so much that it was referred. But ultimately, you made the decision. We had a discovery call. We had a chat about what to expect. What is it in there that allowed you hold space for trust until it was built, right? Because there has to be some proof points too. What is it that you go, okay, I think I can work with this coach?
I think it was on our initial call, to be honest. It was very much so, for me, it was very much so. We gave a quick, general chit chat for a few minutes. And then you were very clear and you were very direct about, how you work and what you're going to do. And I think you said something to me that, was I appreciated a lot. I think you were quite clear in saying, look, this is a two-way street, that if you're not giving me what I expect or the respect that you would expect, it's not going to work. So then I had to up my game and say, I can't mess around here. This is somebody else's time. Obviously, I've researched your organization, your business, and you were a referral to me. So I knew I was dealing with a very impressive business and a very impressive person, and somebody that works with people that I want to be, that I want to move to that next level. So definitely the background helped me, but then your directness was very important because I like to be challenged and I like to work with people that are very, very positive and very direct. And as I said at the very start of the call, Maureen, I don't have all the answers, and I didn't have all the answers, and I still don't have all the answers as much as I sometimes pretend I do. So I think the chemistry worked. I think, to be honest, I was probably my first real coaching, or since I've left university, which will be 20 years ago. So it is a different dynamic going into it, and so I think all those factors played a massive part for me to decide to move ahead with coaching.
So the last piece is, if there is someone out there who has either had coaching and it was okay, or are thinking about coaching, what would your advice be to them today?
Well, I mean, obviously, if they're thinking about doing it, it means that they have identified some sort of a gap in their leadership style. So I would recommend doing it. Firstly, I don't see anyone, I wouldn't see why people out there, especially in leadership, wouldn't want to improve themselves and wouldn't want to get better every day. And I always bring it back to what we ask from our teams. It doesn't matter what industry you're in, if you're in sales or if you're in marketing or if you're in finance, we demand excellence from our teams below us. And we want people to improve every day, whether it's their overall job performance. So why wouldn't you, or why wouldn't I as a leader try and improve on a daily basis as well? So I think it's an ongoing thing. I think it's important for everyone's development. So I would highly recommend people take the plunge and absolutely do it, but stick to it. Learn from it, use what you're learning, or use it in your day-to-day life, because it will benefit you. And as I said, not just in professional work, but in your personal life as well. Whenever I have an argument with my wife, she'd always say, maybe it's time you go back and you have a chat with your coach again. So it's true. That was 2 weeks ago. So you can use it absolutely in all parts of your life.
Thank you. And you're making me smile, because the amount of people that have sat in front of me over the years and said that a partner or a spouse or whatever have said, it's time to go. I was told it's time to go back to Maureen.
Yeah.
Or we understand how to communicate. And obviously
Exactly.
they send me envelopes, which works really well. Any final words you'd like to say? I mean, I asked some questions there. Is there anything I didn't ask, or anything you'd like to say that would wrap this up for you?
No, I think it's difficult really to put into perspective if I didn't start the coaching a couple of years ago, because my career has obviously changed a lot over the past, let's say 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
And it's important that you have to understand exactly what plays a factor in that. Is it luck? I don't think so. I don't believe in luck. It's opportunity meets preparation. And I think preparation is that comes from what you put into yourself. So you've got to put in, what have I done differently over the past number of years? And coaching was very important. Educating myself was very important. Reading. And again, I'll go back to that, understanding what your gaps and your weaknesses are. So, if you put all that in together, you can absolutely move to the next level, because I see it as an advantage. If you've got people that are competing with you, but they're not doing coaching, you have an edge on them. So again, it's trying to compete, and it's trying to move yourself to the next level. I don't know if I have the patience or the stamina to go back to university or to do a degree, but you certainly can improve yourself by doing coaching and discussing weaknesses and seeing how you can move to the next level.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. You've offered a lot of personal story and professional story and insights. I know it's going to make an impact, so thank you.